It's very timely to remind of a very profound Sufi story. So let's see what arises out of it for us at this time. It's a story about that man called Malik Denar. Now, Malik Denar was an extraordinarily rich man, inordinately rich. But he was called the generous man of Khorasan because he gave so freely of his wealth. He gave largesse in all directions, but he did pride himself on his giving. But then one day a realization came to him about this quid pro quo that he was enacting, and he thought to himself, this cannot go on indefinitely. So he decided that the only thing he could do was to give away everything. So he did. He gave away all of his worldly wealth. So he was penurious, he had nothing. And he was in a state where he would contemplate this state. But not long after, he was sitting down in meditation, as was his bent, when suddenly out of the floor in front of him arose an image of a dervish wearing his patched work cloak. And the image said to Malik Denar, I am your real self, and because of your sublime act of generosity, without thought of reward, recompense, or thanks, I am almost real for you. And then the image gave Malik Denar a stick and said, beat me. Beat me, and I will turn to gold. And have no fear that you will do me harm, nor that there will be an end to this. So every day you must enact this. So Malik Denar did what he was told. He took the stick and beat the image of the dervish, and the dervish immediately became a pile of gold, which Malik Denar was again able to distribute to all and sundry. But one day, Malik Denar had a visitor by the name of Abu Bakr. Now Abu Bakr was with Malik Denar when this image emerged out of the floor, as it did each day. And so he witnessed the beating and the transformation that took place. Now, after this, of course, Malik Denar shared the gold with Abu Bakr. But Abu Bakr, in witnessing this, thought to himself, well, if you beat a dervish, they're going to turn to gold. So he took the gold that Malik Denar had given him, and he arranged a big feast, and he invited all the dervishes in town. And when they came, he came out with his big stick, and he started to beat them all. So they were all bloodied and beaten and so forth. And the few that remained untouched by this grabbed him, of course, and took him off to the magistrate. Well, they brought the poor beaten dervishes to demonstrate what this Abu Bakr had been doing. And then, of course, Malik Denar had to be called to give evidence, because Abu Bakr told the story to the magistrate about what he'd witnessed and why he was copying it and what he thought. So on the way to the courthouse, Malik Denar heard the voice of the dervish in his ears telling him what to say. So when he got to the courthouse, he said to the judge, well, this man, I know him, of course, he's an acquaintance, but he must be insane, because the sequence of events that he described is not, in fact, what happened in my house. So Abu Bakr was hauled off to the insane asylum until he came back to his senses. But every day after this, for the rest of his life, Malik Denar would have the image emerge, which was himself, and he would take the stick that was himself and beat that image that became the gold that was himself. And every day he would give it to those who were in that state when they were only able to understand in the material sense and not understand in the deeper spiritual sense. So as we emerge, you might say, from this cyclical event, which brings about an enactment, a series that inevitably is completed as the story goes. When that stone rolls aside, we've shed our shroud and we emerge in a new state. What does this story mean for you? What does it mean to have this manifestation, that image arise? I am your real self, and because of what has transpired, I'm almost real. Beat me, and I'll turn to gold. What happens now, Bonnie, when we become aware of obedience, and when we have been obedient? There's a certain little process there, isn't there, involved in this?
And it's easy once you follow it.
It's so easy.
It's like the image of the non-image.
The image of the non-image. Yes, we can say so.
The image.
Yes, yes. But you know, I can only tell you my own experience. In arriving at this place where we know there's no God out there, there's no prayers, there's no supplications of any kind, and yet on my lips every night after I've laid my head down on the pillow, I, with all of my being, I say, Thy will be done. Thy will and only thine. Do you see what is meant? So what is this stick? What is this image that we're beating? That leaves that space where gold, like the rose blooming out of the unknowing. What is it for us? What does this story mean for you, in other words? Do you have a stick? What is that stick?
Is it to keep you awake?
Keep you awake. Yes. Don't fall into trying to claim anything for yourself. Remember who you are. Isn't that? Because with all of my being, thy will and thine alone. What does it really mean for us? But to me, that's the stick. Don't even imagine that you can bring in any self that's going to claim something for itself. And you know, they say in the great books and the great masters, while we're in a body, there's danger. There's danger that we can slip back into that word, the mind, samsara, as it's called. But then there's that little catchphrase in this story. Because of your act, I'm almost real. What would this connote for us? Because of this act of divesting of all of your wealth, I'm almost real. What would this mean?
The focus on the material is gone.
Yes. No attachment to worldly goods. But we know that it's not all it is it? It's not all it is. Just by giving up all our worldly wealth, we're not realized beings.
It's totally giving up the self, isn't it?
That's right. Yes. That's right. But there's more to this story. When we look at the end of the story, Malik Denar, for the rest of his life, giving out the gold to those who can only receive the material. It has deep meaning for us. What does that gold represent?
Truth.
Right. Right. Words, teachings, expression, isn't it?
Whatever form it is that takes after the stick has done the beating.
Absolutely.
Because for every person that form is different, isn't it?
Right. But there is that catchphrase. I'm almost real. Which leads us to believe that we have to know what is real. This is why we're on the road to understanding the nature of emptiness. Thank you, thank you.